Going back to the lawsuit, the feelings, and I was in the community when the lawsuit was so prevalent, and it was the knot in your stomach feeling. You felt like you just couldn't do anything right. You were working very, very hard, but things were not where they needed to be. You felt like we were always under a cloud. So there were dark days during the lawsuit.
There were not a lot of programming for the kids. There were a lot of, we were just warehousing the youth here. And so most of the time they spent a lot of times in their rooms or in the dormitories.
It was scary. You think what they're gonna do to you, who's gonna mess with you, who you have to get in a fight with, how long you gonna be there, all types of things.
When I first saw the fence, my hope just left. I had no hope. I didn't know what to do. I didn't know what to expect.
You know, when you're on the federal watch like that, you spend the majority of your time responding to court orders and just you do what you can. I call it being in survival mode. When you're on the federal lawsuit, basically all you're doing is trying to survive. You have very little room to think outside the box. You have very little room to try new ideas. And so it's really, and most of the time, in every case, when a lawsuit happens, it was needed.
There was a day that I would sit on the outside looking in at DJJ and would wonder if you believed that you could make a difference, if you believed that you could have exciting programs. The spirit of change was not at DJJ.
Basically, the difference in philosophy that we took after I got here with the lawsuit was, Judge, you were right in the lawsuit. We are going to embrace not only the letter of that of your judgment, but the spirit of it, and we're going to put that in place. Because in talking to the professionals that were here, they really knew what to do, but they had not been really allowed to do that. And so it was the idea that we were going to change the conditions of confinement. We were going to change the way that we did business here at DJJ.
That was a tremendous step in the right direction, because when the girls were at Greenwood, we had overcrowding. It was about 90-something girls up there at one given time. We didn't have appropriate facilities for girls. We were not focused on girls. And so it was just, it was sort of like being out of sight, out of mind. Bringing them back here behind the fence, I think, gave us an opportunity to really take a look at the inequities that existed between genders.
We have some terrific teachers that work one-on-one with these girls. Each girl has an independent, individual school plan. They have a low teacher-student ratio, and the girls get a lot more individual attention than they would normally in a public high school with 30 children in the class.
They have been amazing. For somebody I love to read and write, and for me, I don't go to school. So when I'm home, I don't go to school, but for me to be here and the teachers to really actually care and pour out their heart to help you and help you get your goals right and make sure you do stuff right. I have a problem with math, but Miss Sons is the best math teacher I ever had in my life, because she break it down where I can understand it.
But an intensive probation officer, intensive supervision officer, has a much smaller caseload. And it just makes sense. If you got 20 kids versus 60, you're going to be able to do a better job. You're going to be able to establish a relationship with that child. You're going to be able to see that child more often. You're going to be able to understand what's going on in that child's life every day.
Well, when he comes on his visits, we usually talk about some of the colleges I can go to, about some job interviews and some jobs I can go to, and then he'll take me out to go and really go get some stuff I need for a job. He'll tell me to call him up and let him know that I need a ride or whatever.
You know, not only is he an officer, but he's a friend that I can call at any time and say, hey, you know, I need help in this, what should I do? And if he don't have the answers, he'll get it and he'll say, well, let me call you back if, you know, if it's anything that you need. And I said, well, and he does. He's real good. He's real good about everything.
When I found out from Trudy Trotty and her folks who keep the statistics that our most serious and violent offenders who were under the supervision of our intensive supervision officers, that their recidivism rates were dropping from 1/3 to 40%. That was a private, very proud moment.
Teen after school centers. A lot of our kids, when they get out of school, you know, get in trouble. That's when crime spikes up. It's a high crime time. It's also a high crime time and also victimization time period. People get in trouble. Unfortunately, our kids don't go home like a lot of kids and do their homework and stay at home and don't get in trouble. They get in trouble. So we started after school programs, in particular with the faith community.
By them talking to him and in this program, the teachers and everything, it got a turnaround in him because it was like he was going to school but he wasn't taking a part. He wasn't interested in the school like he ought to be. But since he started here, it had really turned around. So, but this program is really wonderful, really wonderful. I think it's turned around my whole household, and I thank God for it.
It's almost like we're at the point now where we kind of know what to do if we're given the resources. We have the expertise to do that, and I think the judges really brought that to fruition through leadership and resources and a lot of partnerships that we've developed. So we haven't been able to count solely on state funds. We've developed a lot of partnerships and got private funding and just kind of non-traditional ways of working with kids.
Our programs are more effective now, and we're actually meeting, you know, the needs of the youth. We have reintegration in process now. Back then we didn't have, you know, like a reintegration coordinator or planning for what the youth was going to do once they left the facility.
I think Judge Byers is probably one of the best collaborators that I know. He's been a breath of fresh air in the relationship that we've had. It's been very positive. I've seen juvenile justice change dramatically. You have seen tremendous strides, not just in the programmatic side of it, but the spirit of the people at DJJ.
It's been a wonderful experience working for Judge Byers, and he's very knowledgeable, very smart man, and he's implemented a lot of strategies that has really, I think, transcended this agency.
FJJ is really a friend of DJJ. What we want to do, our plans, are to try to create chapter organizations throughout the state. So our first project was the Community Connection Center, and what we wanted to do there was create a place that would be safe, well structured, but where parents and mentors and church members and anybody in the community could come and visit a juvenile while they're in prison and then help to plan their transition out. But what we really want to do now, our plan, is to create and help support DJJ. DJJ has a project called Teen After School Centers. So what we want to do is create teen after school centers and support those that are already existing around the state and use those as a safe place for mentors to come to work with juveniles.
We have a 20% reduction in the number of juvenile crimes in this state. That is astounding. The number of kids that we had when I first came, we had about 1,600 children sleeping in DJJ beds. We're now barely above 1,200 children. That is tremendous progress. But we know how to do a whole lot more. I think about it when I get up in the morning. I think about it at work. How can we continue to sustain? How do we sustain ourselves until this time passes and we can build the system back and make our citizens safer and do a better job with redeeming our children? Because these children really have the least hope, often the least family, the least money, the least future of anybody in South Carolina. And by serving them, you're able to serve a higher good. You also make your neighbors safer. And I have been astounded at the goodness of the people in this state who have come forward and said, in effect, we're going to give to these kids. They're not giving to the government. They're not giving to DJJ. They're not giving to Bill Byers or anybody out here. They are giving to the least of God's children.
Tell you how important it is to me for us to be as successful as we can to keep these kids out of the adult prison system, because that does not benefit anyone. It doesn't benefit society, it doesn't benefit the kids, it doesn't benefit anybody.
This agency and juvenile justice in South Carolina, in my opinion, is on cutting edge, is in cutting edge nationally. We think out of the box. There are not too many programs that we don't try. There are best practices that we use. We certainly research those programs, but we're willing to try things with young people. And I think that's very unique to us. We're willing to try. So I think progressive, cutting edge, willing to think out of the box, wanting to do everything possible for young people in South Carolina that are at risk, whatever it might be, to make their life and the life of their families better.
You know, like on a tombstone, and you have like the day they was born and the day they were, you know, they had passed away. But you see the hyphen. The hyphen is what you do in between it. You know, to the day you was born to, you know, your ending day. And my start, it was like, you know, the day I was born, and what I did in the hyphen, I transformed, you know, somebody that only, you know, stayed in the neighborhood selling drugs and all of that. I transformed that kind of, you know, teenager into a teenager that's in college. So, you know, my hyphen, you know, has transformed into, you know, a better, you know, life than I could live.